My first memories of Ash Wednesday come from the time I was growing up in Green Bay, and the ecumenical movement of the 70s was really engaging a lot of the churches in the area, and my parents were a part of that. And so they had my brothers and I attend the ecumenical services with them for Ash Wednesday and then consecutively the weeks in Lent, always on a Wednesday night. And it was a part of that service that really stuck with me. And that was the service of the ashes. And the reason it really stuck with me is because I did not enjoy it at all. I felt like when we went forward for those ashes to be put on our head, that my personal space was being violated. And I was a teenager and I didn't want anybody messing with the way I looked. My mom really pushed us to participate. And she did so because she thought that that experience would be really important for us as we move forward in our life of faith. And as disgruntled as I was with being required to participate in this part of the service, my mom reminded me that Lent is a time where we do things that we're not necessarily comfortable for, because Lent represents the 40 days of Jesus in the desert. And she'd say, and you can't tell me Jesus was comfortable in the desert as he fasted. And I said, well, Mom, what is fasting? And she said, well, Lynn, you really don't need to worry about fasting so much because Presbyterians don't practice fasting. What I want you to focus on is the ways you aren't acting very Christian right now, and I want you to fix them. Well, I'm sure that she actually had a list of things that she would have had me fix, ways that I needed to get my act together and act more Christ-like. My mom was a Christian educator, and she knew what she was doing. And I think the conversation that we had regarding the imposition of ashes has set a tone for what I believe about Lent and what I believe its purpose is in a Christian's life. Since then, I've come full circle on the whole idea of ashes, and I really do appreciate the symbolism of ashes. Dust to dust, we hear often in our liturgies for funerals and around Ash Wednesday. The ashes have come to mean something else for me because it is a way of identifying that we are a part of creation and we have a responsibility to creation. But it's also come to represent for me the moving into a day of personal assessment. What's going on in my spiritual life that needs to be tuned up, that needs to have some attention made to it? What is Lent really going to lead me into this year? And no, we don't have a tradition in the Presbyterian tradition of fasting per se, although we do talk about giving things up for Lent. But Lent is a time where we need to be engaged in some kind of discipline that helps us become a better follower of Christ. And I hear an echo of my mom's words, fix what you need to fix, work on it. One of the traditional texts for Ash Wednesday services comes from the prophet Joel chapter 2, and specifically I'm focusing on verses 12 and 13. Even now declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Rend your heart, not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity. Rend your hearts and not your garments, says the prophet. Return to the Lord your God. On Ash Wednesday, it is symbolic to receive the ashes on our foreheads. But those ashes are meaningless if we don't take the next step and begin to assess where we have fallen short of the glory of God. My personal text for Ash Wednesday comes from Micah chapter 6, verse 8, and it's a familiar passage for all of us. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Walking humbly is an attitude that we must take on as we journey into the season of Lent. How are we to rend our hearts or take stock of our lives or welcome a tune-up, to mix a bunch of metaphors, if we are not willing to go deep and ask ourselves the hard questions about our lives, our spiritual lives? And I don't think that there's a better time to do it than now. We have been living in the midst of COVID-19 for a year. We haven't been gathering as a church body for a year. We have been quarantined. We have experienced illness. We have had limited resources. We've been engaging in political, I wanted to say dialogue, but it's not dialogue, unrest. And all sorts of other kinds of things have been going on in our lives. And in the midst of all that, yes, we have seen that we are a resilient people and we have certain strengths, but also in the middle of all that, we have come face to face with our lesser selves. We long to be a Christian that doesn't have to fix so many things, but it's who we are. And Lent is a time where we can begin the journey again, start anew, identify what we don't like about who we are in our discipleship and do something about it. It is when we rend our hearts, when we own up to the fact that we can be better and we long to be better, and we commit to healing our brokenness within, our alienation with others, our need for a better relationship with creation, and our need to have a better relationship with Jesus Christ, and be committed more thoroughly to our God. I end my Ash Wednesday reflection with a prayer. It's kind of a prayer from the words of Psalm 51. Listen and pray with me. I know my transgressions, O God, and my sin, it's always before me. Cleanse me, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Amen. Bless you on your journey into our Lenten season. And may you find ways to improve your walk as a Christian and as a child of God.